2025 was a much better year for cinema than I'd expected. I vividly remember the early to mid-autumn where I was disappointed in the lackluster amount of great films. But I will be the first to admit that I was wrong. 2025's final third, and the couple of months since, where more of the year's more interesting works became available to me, came in strongly swinging. This was a year where my list for the year's best was mostly newer voices in film. To me, these filmmakers may not be as much of a recent discovery as they were for me. Unless their last name was Anderson, and they were indie darlings in the 1990s, bringing to the screen action movies about fatherhood, most, not all, of my favourite auteur filmmakers mostly just disappointed this year. I'm not here to kick them while they're down. The point of this is to be positive and celebrate the year's best. Of course, as I assumed would be the case, I have not watched everything, although I don't think that I have particularly large blind spots. Films that I really did want to catch, but couldn't for one reason or another are Magellan, The Plague, If I Had Legs I'd Kick You, Nirvana the Band that showed the movie, The Stranger, Splitsville, Resurrection, My Father's Shadow, and The Things You Kill. I did want to watch them before making the list, but I could no longer push this video back. I may veer into spoiler territory with some of these, and so this is your spoiler warning. If you haven't seen these films, continue with care. For films that I have covered with reviews, links to those videos are present in the description below. And thus, without further dilly-dallying, I present to you my list of the top 25 films of 2025. Number 25. Warfare by Alex Garland and Ray Mendoza. The film is the realization of a group of soldiers' wartime memories in real time. It's a terrific use of sound to evoke a sense of immersion in the combat and chaos of the rapidly accelerating situation. However, all that expert filmmaking aside, I think that it is the final shot that really makes this film, turning the gaze of the audience away from the soldiers and to the people caught in the crosshairs by such a military campaign. Number 24. Peter Hujar's Day by Ira Sachs. Conceptually very restrained and quiet, but the flow of the editing keeps this one moving at a clip, even with its shorter runtime. The absence of location changes, or the fact that there are only two characters at any one point, is never made into a flaw, as everything the film does with its editing keeps every scene feeling fresh. The near constant stream of dialogue is the highlight of this pleasant film, and Ben Whishaw's constant ramblings specifically keep the metaphorical engine running. Number 23. I Swear by Kirk Jones. The year's best biopic is that of John Davidson, the Tourette's campaigner. Its more traditional biopic structure aside, the film is able to tackle under-discussed themes surrounding Tourette's in a manner which makes it easy to comprehend the disability that ails Davidson. I don't think it ever sensationalizes, and its portrayal is as normal as it needs to be. On top of that, it's an extraordinary performance by Robert Aramayo, which is able to toe that line between informative and comedic in a manner that makes the message go down smoother. Number 22. The Secret Agent by Kleber Mendoza Filho. This is the only film currently where I think a rewatch may significantly increase its positioning, but after only one viewing, this is where I've decided to place The Secret Agent. The film is a real melange of tones and atmospheres, all gravitating around one central Wagner Moura performance. It's the kind of performance that has been largely absent from what I consider to be the year's best leading performances. It's subtle. It changes, yes, to match the desired tone, but the core truth of the character remains stable. If anything, the title, sounding kitsch and pulpy, plays a paratextual joke on audience anticipation, as it is a slow burn character drama following Moura's reserved Marcello. The film also goes off the rails once or twice, with breaks from reality. A stop-motion dismembered hairy leg does go on a bit of a rampage, and no, I shan't explain to those of you who haven't seen the film yet. Mischief is a great one-word way of explaining Mendoza's film, as it goes on its balancing act of maintaining its plethora of emotional registers. Definitely requires additional viewings. I don't think I got everything from just one. I think the framing device of the voice recordings being listened to in the modern day is something which could be dissected more now that I know that that's a crucial part of the story being told. Stuff like that needs a rewatch. Number 21. It Ends by Alexander Ulom. Maybe my biggest surprise of the year, It Ends is a new indie film which was only available to watch via the newly forged Letterboxd video store. Chances are that a large portion of this video's potential audience hasn't been able to watch this yet. Simply put, the film is about four people in a car caught on an endless road which naturally devolves into existential crises about where one's life is headed. I relate to this feeling. As an 18-year-old headed towards university, and God knows what after that, the horror of It Ends has really gotten to me. Its simple concept really makes the unknown, the enigma as to the why of this situation feel more oppressive. This is a film where the direction really stands out. Everything is paced excellently to keep a sense of paranoia slowly simmering in the background as the characters try to escape, some of whom start to give up hope. Watch this film whenever it is that you may get the opportunity. Number 20. The Long Walk by Francis Lawrence. I may not be one for YA fiction most of the time, but there's something about The Long Walk which really stuck with me. Following 50 teenage boys in a violent televised event, the film was able to play on my emotions. Somewhat emotionally manipulative as it may be, I'll be lying if I didn't say that it wasn't effective. Leaving the theatre, I had a tightness in my chest from the sheer strength of the emotional stranglehold the stress of the story had applied to me. The chemistry between Cooper Hoffman and one of my favourite actors on the scene right now, David Johnson, is electric. It verges between a potential homoerotic subtext and simply being best buds, but either way, it pulls off the feat of making the potential loss of either a gut-wrenching possibility, which I'd argue pays off by the end in order to create that tense feeling in my chest. Number 19. Urchin by Harris Dickinson. Actors moving into directing is nothing new, and I doubt they'll ever be a unique phenomenon, but Dickinson's directorial debut is something noteworthy. It's an amalgamation of recent independent film inspirations. The Safdies are a clear influence on the film, but it still carves its own unique path. It has the realism of the British socio-realist movement, the messy havoc of a Safdie script, while also exploring more surrealist scenes which provide a texture to the world of Urchin, where the audience is placed directly in the protagonist's head. Hell, it's weirder than I could have ever assumed. I'm trying to sell this movie to as many people as I can here. Is it working? Frank Delane, an actor who I didn't know before this, makes the main character captivating, also highlighting almost exclusively his negative attributes. He's self-destructive the way a Safdie performance is, but worse off because he affects everybody around him, harming them without care for their lives as he needs to escape his poverty as best he can. Number 18. No Other Choice by Park Chan-wook. A new film from Park Chan-wook is a cinephilic event, and this is the most starkly comical he's ever gone. It's stuffed to the gills with subtext-rich visual images and shots which almost nobody else is doing, pushing the boundaries of what digital cinema is capable of. No Other Choice is director Park's take on the corporatized modern world and how it weaponizes traditional forms of masculinity for its gain. That being said, the biggest draw for this film is easily Lee Byung-hun in the lead. His slapstick, physical performance is the heart of this film, whereas incompetence in the neo-noir landscape of the film makes him stand out. No matter what, he keeps the film on its tonal track, and the filmmaking excellence is used to bolster him, not the other way around. This isn't to diminish the style. It's a Park Chan-wook film, so you know the editing is on point. The transitions, which otherwise may be a bit hokey with how much they dive into digital filmmaking, work because of how greatly they're trusted with keeping the pace of the film going. There are moments where two distinct spatial settings are fused into one for the sake of conveying a phone call. Aside from things like that, I don't think that it reaches the heights of A Decision to Leave, but it works as a darkly satirical film from the South Korean auteur. The fizz of AI seep into every moment in this film, and I greatly admire its take. No other filmmaker around is doing it like Park. Well... Number 17. Reflection in a Dead Diamond by Elaine Catet and Bruno Forzani. Take everything I said about no one doing it like director Park, and take a breather, because no one does like Catet and Forzani, nor do I think anyone ever has before. Dead Diamond is a Belgian pastiche of James Bond, taking all of the core tenets of the character, the gadgets, the girls, the casual misogyny, the action, and creating something which puts a lens on the conventions, evoking the potential horrors of such a concept when pushed to the extreme. But it isn't just the spy stuff that makes Dead Diamond as good as it is. What makes this film work especially well is the Catet and Forzani style, so inherently moulded by the likes of Italian giallos and anime, where the colours are vibrant and the editing rhythm is so fluid it's insane. I don't want to spoil much. The film's focus on metatextually dissecting the legacy of Bond goes on to get slightly difficult to follow along with, and so I do think this one requires another watch. Number 16. 28 Years Later by Danny Boyle. The first of two sequels on my list, the 28 Years Later series has proven exactly what I want from a legacy sequel. Following entirely new characters, Spike, Isla, Dr. Ian Kelson, In an environment carried on from previous installments, Alex Garland and Danny Boyle take a wholly unique approach to the zombie apocalypse story. Rather than continue with the survivor story, the film taps into a deeply emotional coming-of-age story, following Spike as he has to come to terms with his place in a deeply violent world. The iPhone shots, with the newly constructed bullet time rigs, created sequences which brought forth a new visceral level to action filmmaking. I'll confess, this one brought a tear to my eye in the third act, when Isla is euthanized and Spike puts her skull atop the bone temple. My sole complaint is that the film goes by too fast, as opposed to too slowly, and on both my viewings, it simply has not felt like 2 hours. It's slightly disappointing on that front, but that's more of a really minor gripe than anything with substance. Number 15. The Phoenician Scheme by Wes Anderson. This may be the single most fun time I had at the movies in 2025. Stop yammering about with the idea of Wes Anderson fatigue, and he's just a pastiche of himself now, because I don't think that he is. His films can still be as funny as they've ever been, providing a necessary escapism from the real world into his elaborately designed dollhouse. I need films like this in my cinematic diet. I love the fact that we have a Wes Anderson film which goes into darker, deeper thematic ground, as it explores the evils within humanity, as presented through the arms manufacturer Zsa Zsa Gabor. Zsa Zsa Gabor is my favourite Wes Anderson protagonist in many years. Benicio del Toro brings the coldness of Gabor to life, and brings forth some of the most demonic and devilish lines of the Anderson filmography. "I don't need my human rights" remains one of my favourite lines he's written, nearly a whole year after I watched it for the first time. Then it's also got a wondrous handheld action scene between Gabor and Benedict Cumberbatch's Nubar, where the careful design of the dollhouse is shattered for visceral effect. Even more, I was on the film's wavelength from the very opening, when an employee of Gabor is split in half in the methodical way so intrinsically Anderson during a plane crash. It's a hell of a lot of fun, following the thawing heart of an evil money-hungry businessman. Does that feel politically apt for our current day? And his religious daughter, which is a right barrel of laughs. Number 14. Train Dreams by Clint Bentley. I'll be the first to preface this by saying that I don't know if I have a lot to say about Train Dreams, in all honesty. I find his portrayal of an ordinary, well-meaning life to be profoundly meaningful. It's all brought to life so wondrously by a central Joel Edgerton performance, which lacks any external bells and whistles, it just creates a person. It's a quiet one, but given the scope of the film as it traverses across his life, Robert's subtleties as a human being are what the film relies on as a crux. I take that back. It's a significant portion of it. The other player in Train Dreams' key two-hander is the cinematography, proving that motion pictures don't need to be shot on film to have texture and weight. It all depends on the actual craft behind the camera. The digital cinematography paints the American forestry with an elegance just soothing in that quintessential Malick way, simply reinvented for a new era. Then of course is the ensemble of people who cross paths with Robert, the ones who stand out most being William H. Macy, Nathaniel Arcand, and Felicity Jones especially. Macy, with what few scenes he has, may be my favourite supporting actor performance of the year, as he waxes poetically about the natural world around him as it steadily modernises and shifts in that direction. I don't have a lot of new stuff to say about this film. It's cosy and life-affirming in all the right ways that even voiceover narration, a technique I'm typically against, doesn't ruin the immersion. Number 13. Die My Love by Lynne Ramsay. The lack of a straightforward, traditional narrative in favour of such a primal, animalistic experience is what makes Ramsay's latest the intensely memorable experience that it is. Everything coalesces into a nightmarish portrayal of the main character, Grace's madness. The Petzval lenses distort the image which, on the aesthetic level, presents the descent into delusion in a wonderfully stylized manner. Yet, like with what I've realised about most of the entries on this list, it's the central performance of this one which makes it all the more powerful. Jennifer Lawrence never overacts. Her and Robert Pattinson growling about, circling each other like two animals, is never too out there. The film requires a little, okay, maybe not a little, exaggeration, but required hyperbolic strokes are not equatable to overacting. It's not a normal movie, and that's fine. The point is to be restrictive and a manifestation of Grace's mental state, shunned by the people around her. On that front, it becomes the best quote-unquote horror film of the year by prioritising the uncomfortable sensations. Story is delegated to the background. This is an experimental film. I just happened to really click with how it was doing what it was doing. It's visceral in all the right ways, formally exciting, They put so much out of her isolation. Number 12. Seurat by Oliver Lacks. The best full-body, auditory experience of 2025 is Oliver Lacks' Seurat, set within Morocco's desert rave scene. Especially for what it is, a guttural expression of musically aided freedom, the film occupies a rare position as a deeply spiritual work, which has divided audiences, and yet I consider it to be the beating heart of the work. Take Die My Love's emphasis on providing a visceral sensation within its viewer and ramp that shit up. You get Seurat. David Kangding Ray's nightmarishly pressing techno score is the best of the year, no questions asked. It put me right into the action, building that bizarrely poignant serenity found in the dance and the out-of-your-mind tension found in every sweaty pore of this film. I have listened to this score endlessly while writing. It has the propulsion a good score requires, and it is so fundamentally baked into the rave culture the film is built around. The films are so rarely haptic, but Seurat is the most multi-sensational film that can evoke smells and feelings which all stem from the grime and the synth score. This may also have the best ensemble of predominantly non-professional actors, and it increases the levels of immersion, bringing much needed authenticity to the alien environment. Well, alien to me. I've never been to a Moroccan desert rave myself, and I don't know if I would want to after this. Don't go in knowing anything about the second half. The sudden transition into the edge-of-your-seat stress is what solidifies this as one of the year's best, so do not go in knowing any of the plot mechanics of that second half. You'd only ruin the viewing experience if you do. Number 11. Sorry Baby by Eva Victor. If you're after a low-key film, Sorry Baby is the one for you. One of the few on this list. Eva Victor's ability to tackle such a difficult to discuss theme as SA is, through their direction, but most notably, and the reasons why I believe it requires as much of a celebration as I can provide here, the writing and central performance as Agnes, commendable. It's not the kind of film which seems tipped to be a comedy, but it's the natural humour from someone as naturally light-hearted, sarcastic and dry as Agnes is, which allows for the tone to be melded towards something uplifting amidst all the darker thematic content. The central act which, in the film's chronology, kicks everything off for Agnes' story, is presented with care, told exclusively through 3 external shots. Nothing is shown. This is nowhere near being a gratuitous film. When the repercussions of everything are explored, it's with Agnes in the centre, told mostly through her reactions a la dialogue. This is a talkie, where the specificities of Agnes as someone moving past an experience with SA are given the dramatic weight they so need, while being fun. Fun seems like the wrong word here. It really does, but there's no way around it. She's such an endearing character that you want things to go her way. The episodic structure of it all also explores a wider array of her experiences as a human being. The clear highlight of this is The Year with a Really Good Sandwich, where the 1-2 punch of John Carroll Lynch and Eva Victor talking while sitting down outside is so heartwarming. Yes, the film is dark, as it has to be given the subject matter, but it's amply accessible to a wider audience who may not watch it if it weren't allowed to be so rooted in the humour of day-to-day life. And with that, we now progress into the top 10 of 2025. Starting with Number 10, Weapons by Zach Cregger. Move over the Phoenician Scheme. I don't think that there was a film which I had more fun with this year than Zach Cregger's Weapons. Hell, I watched it 3 times now, twice in cinemas, and the only thing which I feared would be gimmicky, the Rashomon-style storytelling technique and the drip-feeding of clues to solve the mystery, wasn't, to say the least. It doesn't lose its bite on rewatch and, instead, like any great mystery movie should, the clues become more obvious as you piece them together in your head, knowing the final outcome. What's more is the fact that Weapons is also a full-on horror comedy, just the way I like him. Excessive and gory, but funny because of how far it takes things. I remember seeing the film advertised and my expectations were rather low, as I found the trailers to be peddling some generic, quote-unquote scariest movie of the year. I'm joyous to say that that isn't the case, and I don't think it was ever going to be. Weapons is hilarious in its over-the-top violence and more kitschy-leaning tendencies that, although I was got by all the jump scares, I was never scared of what was going on. It kept my engagement, making me care for all the focal characters. Could they have maybe been a little more fleshed out? Sure, but the ride is well worth it as is. It's hard to pick standout characters because of how wonderfully Cregger wrote the ensemble, and the actors embodying the roles all do so much to endear the audience to them. They're all flawed people in the wake of a supernatural tragedy, and the conflict seems to very well write itself. Alden Ehrenreich's loser cop Paul might just be my favourite guy in the film, because he's so incompetent at his job, and at life. Josh Brolin gives the best.
What the fuck?
In recent memory, Julia Garner carries the first and most mysterious chunk of the film, where there's the least amount of detail as the paranoid and out-of-her-depth teacher, Miss Gandhi. And James, the addict, is physically hilarious, especially when thrown around by Archer in the third act. And Aunt Gladys is properly freaky. It's hard to talk about Weapons without yammering on about the cast of characters, which makes the film so engrossing amidst the excessive horror on screen. Number 9. Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die, by Gore Verbinski. This takes the Weapons style of writing an expansive ensemble of thematically cohesive characters and explodes any potential barrier, going fully gonzo with its dystopian dread. The opening monologue is instantly engrossing. Give Sam Rockwell more roles where he gets to just deliver exposition, chewing all the scenery as he does so. Haley Lu Richardson as the main protagonist is also incredible. Ingrid is the soul of this story, her allergies to Wi-Fi being only the first of it. Each story following different characters who ultimately find their way onto the Man from the Future's ragtag team of AI-stopping heroes goes further in exploring the ramifications of a highly digitalized world. I did only cover this film recently, so for risk of simply copy-pasting what I've already said, please watch my review. But I need to talk about that ending. The uncertainty I had when the boundaries between reality and fantasy are blurred makes that ending so ominous and haunting. There is no subtlety here in its thematic messaging, and that ending guaranteed the film a spot here in the top 10. Number 8. Wasteman by Cal McMahon. The most recent film to make it onto this list, and so I don't really have anything new to say. It's a superbly harrowing portrayal of contemporary British prison life, with a Forest Sword score which imbues the film with rave-like sensibilities. David Johnson returns to this list, this time with a more internal, quiet performance compared to his role in The Long Walk. Like with Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die, watch my review for more on Wasteman. Number 7. Eddington by Ari Aster. No film that I've watched thus far has managed to capture the contemporary brain-rotty state of things the way that Ari Aster has with Eddington. It's also proof that Aster is a naturally comedically inclined filmmaking voice, and it is now my preferred version of him. He has a control over the provocative material of a film set in the 2020s political climate, where, even now not so long removed from then, it has only been 5 years, and in a pretty bad time globally, the film still comes off as fun. It's still a tough watch, don't get me wrong. This isn't jovially funny. It's making fun of everything it can. Aster is clearly looking at a cultural void and asking us to laugh along to make some form of meaning from it all. To accentuate my point, this is the only time where I've thought to rewatch one of Aster's films, and, to accentuate it more, I watched it twice in the same day. There's a lot here, and it all becomes more evident the second time round. Sure, you get the general brushstrokes on that initial viewing, but I think that the hypocritical qualities only get more noticeable when you've sat with it and are looking past the more obvious setup for gags. The final shootout is the best Western-esque set piece. There's little extra still there to be examined under the surface. It's funny with its use of visual humour, the sound of the machine gun is heavy and vibey, it's really the best action scene of the year, and it all goes to help make recent history seem absurd in a more easily consumable package. I can't stress how much that final shootout is just so good. I love the colourful cast of characters. Yes, it's the Joaquin Phoenix show through and through. Joe Cross is so dumb, but treated with a seriousness that makes his daftness more scary as it devolves into bloodlust. The town of Eddington itself feels so lived in. From the opening, with an unrecognisable Clifton Collins Jr., the setting lands fully formed. The conspiracies, the homelessness epidemic, the COVID of it all, Antifa, everything is put in a pot and stirred up, and somehow, it's only got more relevance since it came out. Has the best single cut of the year too. Number 6. The Mastermind by Kelly Reichardt. I finally discovered the filmography of Kelly Reichardt this year, just in time for her latest, starring my new favourite leading man, Josh O'Connor. Reichardt's focus on a spectrum of non-traditional masculine protagonists is incredibly my thing, and JB Mooney is one for the ages. The privileged yet cataclysmically spoiled and overconfident Mooney is why this film works as well as it does. Like, you never root for the guy. He is all you could ever want, and even gets out of the draft of the Vietnam War, and yet he still wants more. This is the crux of The Mastermind, an ironically titled film which only goes further into painting this portrait of an incompetent loser. O'Connor, with his slouch and quiet demeanour in this one, embodies Mooney excellently, and, seeing as the film revolves squarely around him, a leading man of his talents is needed in keeping this story afloat. On top of this is a score which is a jazzy jolt straight into the system, punctuating the physical comedy and perfectly timed cuts during the art heist, or O'Connor's other tussles with his opposition. It's a subtextual thing, but I also greatly love the arc which is going on behind the scenes with the Vietnam War. It's an ever-encroaching force in the story, rearing its head more and more obviously until the final scene, where Mooney, now homeless and on the run, emerges in an anti-war rally. The dichotomies in its unruly concepts of what a man should be and the societal pressure of the war are what flavour this film to be so textually rich. It's still dryly funny throughout, don't get that mixed up. The final scene, still thematically potent, is still largely made up of the paper-dry comedy of the rest of the film. And now, we enter my top 5 films of 2025. For me, these are the cream of the crop, the creme de la creme. These are: Number 5, Wake Up Dead Man by Rian Johnson. Higher than I could have ever imagined is the third Benoit Blanc mystery. I'm a mildly big fan of the first Knives Out, nowhere near as much as the Zeitgeist however. I do prefer Glass Onion to the first one, but Wake Up Dead Man is a whole other beast again. Say what you will about these Knives Out films, at least Johnson's been reinventing the vibe each time to fit new thematic ground. It's not like I'm a Christian or having difficulties with my faith either. I think that the film, as a case for why stories play such a fundamental role in human life, is extraordinary. It has the necessary murder mystery, which is exciting on its own front. Even if only following the plot, I'd find it difficult to ever be bored by this installment in the Whodunit series. It's the fact that this one is the best protagonist of all 3 films, Josh O'Connor making another appearance on this list as Father Judd, and the fact that he is contrasted by Benoit Blanc, who was given his own arc at last, which has fueled this film into a top 5 slot on this list. I love the back and forth between the spiritually aligned Father Judd and the skeptic Blanc as they have to investigate the impossible murder of Monsignor Jefferson Wicks, whose fiery wrath is brought to life by another returning face on this list, Josh Brolin. I do understand that this film is less of an ensemble picture and sidelines a genuinely superb supporting cast, but I don't really care about that. This film is about Blanc and Judd's pursuit of an understanding of the role of religion, the role of storytelling, and that happened to really resonate with me. A cherry on top of this series' best exploration of thematic ground is the fact that this just looks beautiful. It's got gothic stylings, a la Bram Stoker's Dracula, and lighting which, albeit simple, does a lot to flavour each scene in the grand scale of the supposed thematic tug of war between Judd and Blanc. Number 4, One Battle After Another by Paul Thomas Anderson. This film is Eddington, but from an optimistic perspective. Without a film so inherently nihilistic with it all, using laughter as a coping mechanism to deal with the overwhelming inequalities of contemporary society, PTA's grand-scale genre-fluid action comedy is funny for the sake of putting the more evil forces down while empowering the potential for a brighter future. Did that sound pretentious in a half-cocked way? I'll stand by it. One Battle After Another works as well as it does because of how its action filmmaking is used to create good old-fashioned fun. This is a popcorn flick on its surface, and it's a much-needed veneer. The Christmas Adventurers Club is a joke. There's no other way around it. The whole white supremacist perspective, although absolutely terrifying when embodied by Sergeant Lockjaw's inhuman qualities, is nothing but a laughing matter when examined. The film belittles them with everything it's got. It's meant to be kitsch, and, oh my god, does it pay off. I'm also especially a fan of Regina Hall in this film. She's nowhere near the highest profile character in the film, but Deandra's ideologies are what drive the film. She's the mentor figure from whose perspective we really see the film from. Her and Sensei Sergio, but I'll get to him in a bit. Hall's is the performance which I really gravitate to now. Penn is this big, volatile creature, down to the walk, and DiCaprio's my kind of archetypal doofus, but they're not really where I connected to emotionally. It's mostly Hall and her relationship to Chase Infinity's Willa, raising the true revolutionary spirit with care, as evident through the framing of her eyes especially. It's hard to explain, but there's such a kindness there that has stuck with me more than any other single aspect of the film has. Not scenes, to be clear. Sensei Sergio's Underground Railroad and the final car chase are the scenes that stick. Those scenes make the film as memorable as it is. The editing is on point as the flow of action just persists, the Johnny Greenwood score punctuating it with a chaotic flow, which is also perfect. Gonna need to get myself a few small beers when this video is done, but this is still only number 4. This was a good year for films. Number 3, Marty Supreme by Josh Safdie. There's a certain quality to Marty Supreme which landed it in the top 3. It's truly unpredictable. A lot of films will get close, but none have quite handled it like this. The world itself feels so expansive, and don't try to tell me that this is bad storytelling, as it loses focus on the main character. Each bit, no matter how tangential it may seem, is crucial in establishing Marty Mazza as a dick, in all capitals. One of my absolute top scenes in the film is the honey scene. Not only does the soundtrack create an alluring, magical fantasy tone to the scene, where Bela Kletsky feeds honey slathered on his body to starving Jews in a Nazi camp, it's necessary in highlighting who Marty isn't. Marty will mock this man, using tragedy as a punchline to only make himself seem greater. The scene, based on true events may I add, is, quietly, the best example of characterization, and I will defend it as the film's best, or, bare minimum, most interesting scene, hyperbolic as it may sound. Sorry, that was a tangent I needed to get to, because I know the honey scene is an unlikely topic for a full video, but it may be something to keep a pin in. Marty Mauser is the character of the moment. He is an anachronistic figure in our current media landscape, and he fits in perfectly. The 50s setting, the 80s synthwave score, and the 2020s hustle and grind set culture mash into this entity that is Marty Mauser, Chalamet's best role to date. He's a Weasley little shit, always in motion in one way or another, but still so goddamn likeable, how relatable the pursuit of greatness is. It's a unique trait in a Safdie film, or a film inspired by the Safdies. In Urchin, Mike sucks, and there isn't much to reframe that. In Marty Supreme, the base desire for success through hard work is something which has been co-opted by the internet, and makes him, failures and crash landings included, the perfect character to distill this current cultural moment into. Odessa Zion is also a star in this, stealing the show more often than not, and I need more of her in anything. Her brashness goes head to head with Chalamet's, and neither comes out losing to the other. This is pure Safdie stress, and the scope of the world hammers it home, and the purgatory of failing to grasp success, even with hard work, makes Marty maybe the most conflicting Safdie protagonist. I'm still an uncut gem sort of a guy myself. I happen to like the absolutely unredeemable Howie, and his fuck-ups are so much more colossal. I only bring it up because, with Josh Safdie in particular, it feels like all of his protagonists share most of the same lifeblood. Not a complaint, clearly. Number 2. It Was Just an Accident by Jafar Panahi. No film has had a better final 20 minutes than It Was Just an Accident. This isn't to diminish the rest of the film. Panahi portrays his image of community in early 2020s Iran as diminished by an oppressive government. All the focal characters, victims of a torturer, assemble together in a sprawling odyssey through paranoia and collective trauma. The world is portrayed with Panahi's fury at society, or portraying it through black comedy, such as when the police officers request a tip, and, more notably, the final 20 minutes. There are very few cuts, keeping the camera practically locked in on one character at a time, as the identity of the person, who the main characters have kidnapped, is debated to either be, or not be, the torturer they wish for vengeance against. The lack of score, the harsh red lighting, Ibrahim Azizi's performance as Eghbal, the kidnapped man, as he's questioned by Vahid Mobaseri and Mariam Afshari's main characters. The uncertainty if Eghbal is or isn't the torturer infests the mind, making it unclear if it would be best to kill him, just in case he is the protagonist's torture from their time in a prison camp. And then the final scene. The sound of Eghbal's prosthetic leg, which spurs on the hunt for justice and vengeance, is the last thing we hear, and oh my god, if that isn't the tensest moment in any singular film from 2025. The rest of the film is fantastic, but the final 20 minutes elevate the film to top 2 status. It is absolutely terrifying, and worms its way into the consciousness. I can't forget it. I hate to pause the flow just before my big number 1 placement, but I want to sing my praises for the best lead performance I watched from a 2025 film. Sadly, the film itself was unable to make it into this top 25 because of pretty big flaws which severely bugged me. The performance I'm talking about? Amanda Seyfried from The Testament of Anne Lee. Nothing compares to what she is capable of doing as the Shaker leader Anne Lee in 2025. Her religious fervour is electrifying, and the moments where she's talking regularly are engaging. But what elevates this performance to the best of the year territory are the dancing and singing sequences. Her singing voice is divine, especially within the late 1700s where people are unlikely to sound like modern singers. Thus, her singing has an enchanting ring to it, and the dancing is so full-bodied and devoted. It's easily the best lead performance of the year. I needed to give it some love in this list. Back to the list, and to cap it all off. Number 1, Sinners by Ryan Coogler. There was never going to be anything else at the number 1 spot than Sinners. There is a feeling that truly excellent cinema is able to evoke within me, and I assume it's the same for other filmgoers. Goosebumps, an electrical feeling within you, the urge to just jump up and down in glee. That's not just me, is it? Because Sinners has that in spades. Yes, the barn burner, surreal montage scene is phenomenal, and it is the scene where I was experiencing that electrical feeling. It's the kind of scene where the audiovisual nature of cinema can be fully appreciated just living in the score as people dance. Watching this in theatres, especially in IMAX, was the best feeling in the world. The looseness of the camera as it trails through the crowd, provided by cinematographer Autumn Gerald Arkapour, and just the power of fantastic music, courtesy of Ludwig Göransson, make the scene hit in such a way that I find my sort of reaction inevitable. Yet I've heard some criticisms that the film wasn't much more than just that one scene. I happen to strongly disagree. The first half of Sinners goes for something which I would wish more ensemble horror films did. They explored the cast of characters so that when shit inevitably goes down, I cared for every single one of them. The Smokestack Twins, Sammy, Annie, Mary, Delta Slim, so much time is spent on their realization that the horror of the second half carries sufficient stakes. Pardon my pun. Michael B. Jordan's dual roles as the twins humanizes the both of them while making them stand apart from one another, without stepping on the other's toes. The film is also a rich vampire story, where Remick is maybe the most complicated vampiric character I've encountered. The Irish heritage, where it intertwines in its representation with the black characters who reside in Mississippi, is an added detail which brings out the themes of cultural identity nicely without having to portray the conflicts through strict binaries. Jack O'Connor's vampire is oddly alluring in his sympathizability that the hero-villain dynamic becomes something to unpack for months after the initial viewing. The final shootout with the clan is simply so cathartic. They're the, thematically, real vampires who can't enter the juke joint without Smoke's permission. I can't really nitpick anything here. It's the perfect cinematic experience, giving something new on a large scale, with the full-body sensation of dance, of horror, of action, in a package which fully utilizes its form with the perfect ensemble. Of course it's my number one film of the year. And that's the list. Well, it's my list. There may be omissions which I either haven't had the opportunity to yet watch, or ones that I just didn't mesh with at all. So, what were your top 25, top 10, top 3, maybe even your number 1 film of 2025? Leave your lists in the comments below. And while you're at it, if you could please like, hype and subscribe. Well, that's all. Keep on watching movies, and form your own opinions. See you in the next one.